the station on your side. This is Wavy News 10.
Dangerous heat in Hampton Roads, how you can stay safe when the heat index hits triple digits. And
it's been 3 years since the EPA cited this Gloucester company for non-compliance. It may be even longer than that before us or anyone in this community finds out just exactly what that means. I'm Art Kahn. I'll have that story coming up.
Plus, the Affordable Health Care Act is coming. We'll tell you if the government will be ready for Americans to enroll. Our top story there at 5:30 is that dangerous heat outside. The entire viewing area has been under a heat advisory all afternoon. And here's some of the people trying to beat the heat at Ocean Breeze Water Park in Virginia Beach. I'm a little jealous.
Looks good to me. The good news is that advisory expires in less than half an hour. We're on your side with team coverage on the heat. Super Doppler 10 meteorologist Jeff Edmondson is outside in it with ways to make sure you stay safe.
But we start with Chief Meteorologist Don Slater. And Don, yes, it's July, but can we expect any relief anytime soon?
Well, I think by Sunday we are going to see some definite relief into the region. And it'll come in the form of some rain, too. And after all, this heat is really, really drying things on out. Super Doppler 10 Live, no rainfall whatsoever within the region. In fact, we widen the picture out a little bit and show you what's going on. And we are seeing, again, any rainfall? No, none whatsoever. We've had some cloud cover that's kind of looked like rain off and on, but nothing much going on with that. Now, the heat advisory is actually in effect for the peninsula and Isle of Wight County, Southampton County, and inland. And you can also see it for the eastern shore. So again, basically from the peninsula and anywhere west of Franklin into Virginia, that heat advisory is in effect. Now, the heat advisory is issued when we end up seeing basically any heat index rise above 105 degrees. We've got temperatures 91, 92, 95 degrees, and our heat indices, they're basically around 100 to 106, 108, a little bit cooler into parts of North Carolina. So again, very, very hot conditions through the area. We are going to see some relief, though, coming up by Sunday.
All right, thank you, Don. Police in Alabama are investigating the death of a baby left inside a car for more than 3 hours. Investigators in Homewood say that the 1-year-old girl was in this SUV parked outside a nail salon where her parents work. Emergency crews took the girl to a nearby children's hospital where she died. Her body temperature was nearly 110 degrees. Witnesses say the mother brought lunch to her husband and forgot the child was in the car.
Remind the parents to check their back seat before they exit their car, and think twice before when they drop a child off or pick a child up, or to remember where the child is.
Police are investigating the death and will decide if the parents will face any charges. The northeastern part of the U.S. is in the middle of a heat wave. Washington, D.C. and New York City have been in the 90s all week. Officials closed one playground because the equipment just got so hot it became unbearable.
And if you are playing or working or spending any time at all outdoors, you do want to stay safe. Super Doppler 10 meteorologist Jeff Edmondson is outside right now in Portsmouth. So, Jeff, any good advice?
Well, yeah, I have a bunch of good advice outside, but first of all, showing the trusty old thermometer here, you can see the temperature is getting close to that 100-degree mark. It's not actually at that mark, and it shouldn't be for the rest of the day today, but it still is very hot outside. This is, remember, the actual temperature. This isn't the heat index. That is when you add that dew point. But let's first of all talk about one thing that you can really do to stay cooler outside, and that is really, you want to remember to wear that light colored clothing, that loose fitting clothing. I'm wearing long sleeves here right now, but I've only been out here for a little while. But you want to make sure you have that cooler clothing on, nothing tight, nothing all too dark. Remember, if you try to look pretty, you're going to be hot in this stuff. You want to just dress cool and not worry about what you look like sometimes all the time. Now also, you want to make sure you drink plenty of fluids too. Water is a good thing. Avoid the caffeinated substances. Also avoid those alcoholic beverages too, because that can accelerate that dehydration and that heat exhaustion that you might experience. So if you do start to get to that point where you're starting to feel a little dizzy, you may have a headache outside, that's where you may have heat exhaustion and heat stroke, and that's where you really want to be careful. You want to seek shelter. You want to be indoors, where in a place where there's air conditioning and cooler air to kind of cool your core temperature down. If your core temperature also gets above that 100-degree mark, that's where you really want to be careful. So some of the tips, just remember to stay cool today and also especially for tomorrow. Back to you.
All right, Jeff, I beg to differ. You can look cute and still, you know, wear not hot clothing. We're going to try that out. Especially Don, he says. And Don's doing a fabulous job. No, just kidding. Thanks, Jeff. We are on your side during this dangerous heat. You can log on to wavy.com. We've set up a special coverage page with ways for you to stay safe and to beat that heat. You can check out cooling assistance programs in the area, tips for your car to keep it running, and a slideshow of how folks across Hampton Roads and the country are dealing with high temperatures. And coming up at 6 o'clock, hear how the heat affected some in Hampton Roads today and why they had to pay closer attention to the clock.
We'll get back to your weather in just a bit, but environmental inspectors continue to monitor a Gloucester company after a release of toxic gas. Hazardous material teams sealed off part of George Washington Memorial Highway yesterday, where Advanced Finishing Systems operates a metal coating facility. A cloud of nitric acid was released after the acid overheated when a thermostat broke. People living nearby were evacuated and the highway was closed, but all was back to normal after a few hours and no one was hurt. The Environmental Protection Agency says Advanced Finishing Systems had a violation back in 2010, a violation 10 on Your Side wanted to know more about. But as ArtCom found out today, getting that information is a little easier said than done, Art.
Yeah, that's for sure, Anita. AFS was cited by the EPA for, quote, a significant non-compliance in 2010. Now, since that time, the EPA has had very little else to say about that violation or how the company is doing now. A company executive told 10 on Your Side that the state environmental inspectors who visited the facility Thursday morning found no problems and did not cite the company for any violations. But according to the EPA, Advanced Finishing Systems had a state inspection in April of 2009 and a compliance evaluation inspection in September of 2010. Information on the EPA's website says AFS was cited for non-compliance sometime between September and July of that same year. But nowhere does the EPA explain the nature of that non-compliance, which, according to the government, remains unresolved. People in this rural community aren't afraid to show their patriotism, which has some of them wondering why their government is afraid to show its hand when it comes to Advanced Finishing Systems. Mike Miller is mowing a neighbor's lawn, but wondering about the government's interest in one of his other neighbors.
It may be something minor, and it may be something that, you know, I hate to see people get into trouble for something that's not necessary. But if it's something that's going to affect the public and the people in the area, then they should know something about it.
But the EPA says policy forbids them from talking about an ongoing investigation. Policy the agency says is in the public's best interest.
Releasing sensitive enforcement information that may jeopardize settlement negotiations, possibly result in less protection of public health and the environment.
3 years and they can't tell us anything? Who's doing their investigating?
Audrey Lemon lives about a mile or less from AFS with her 2-year-old grandson and wants the EPA to start talking.
Until they get ready to tell us, we're not going to know.
But AFS released this statement to 10 on Your Side. Quote, as for our community, we are constantly checked on to make sure we are in compliance with the chemicals that we hold in this facility. Well, 10 on Your Side obtained a full copy of the EPA's disclosure policy. It's interesting reading, and we have a link to this document on wavy.com. Now, AFS executives told me today they want the EPA to go public with this as well because they say it'll show their neighbors the original violation was not significant and the issue has been resolved. Reporting live from the newsroom, Art Kahn, 10 on Your Side.
All right, thank you, Art. You can access the link Art just spoke about by clicking on the tab for this story at wavy.com. New at 5:30, the city of Detroit just became the largest city in U.S. history to ever file for bankruptcy. A state-appointed emergency manager asked a judge to place the city in Chapter 9 protection. You know the city has been bogged down in billions of dollars in debt for a while now. The fire and police unions there filed a lawsuit, though, this week, trying to keep the city from filing for bankruptcy because they were worried they would lose their retirement benefits.
A small plane crashed in a trailer park in a D.C. suburb this morning. Authorities say the plane went down shortly after taking off from a Maryland city airport. It clipped one home and then smashed into another. The fire chief says the 70-year-old pilot was injured but conscious and alert. He was taken to a hospital for treatment. There were no reports of injuries on the ground. The FAA is investigating.
The captain of the deadly Costa Concordia cruise ship disaster was in court today. Next, the plea bargain proposed by his attorneys.
And baby betting. No, not babies betting, but betting on babies. Bookies in Britain are banking lots of cash on what the royal family will name their baby. Lawyers for the captain of the Costa Concordia cruise liner are trying again for a plea bargain. Francesco Schettino is facing charges that he caused the shipwreck, abandoned ship, and manslaughter. 32 people died when the ship capsized last year. Other ship officers have already accepted plea bargains. Schettino is the only person facing trial. The new plea deal would give him a 3.5-year sentence.
British bookies appear to be the big winners in the royal baby watch, and people are just betting on the baby's name. The favorites right now for a boy, George and James. Philip, it's a long shot. Now, if the baby is a girl, the top picks are Alexandra, Charlotte, Elizabeth, and Victoria.
Oh, very regal.
Yes. Even though it has long odds, some people are really trying to bet on their hearts, putting the money on Diana, too.
Implementing the Affordable Health Care Act. Find out if the government will be ready for people to enroll in the new program.
And looking for a job in law enforcement, we're going to take you to a job fair in Virginia Beach for people wanting to join police and sheriff's departments in Hampton Roads.
The clock is ticking toward October and the start of Obamacare.
And the success or failure of the huge program may hinge on how many uninsured Americans sign up for health care. As 10 on Your Side, Steve Handelsman reports, today the president made a personal pitch.
3 years after he pushed it through, the president still has to sell Obamacare.
You're getting better protections. You're getting more value for each dollar that you spend on your health care.
He presented people the program's already helped. Morgan Theriault got $267 back from her insurance company, a penalty for spending less than 80% of premiums on actual health care costs. But Mr. Obama's main message is to sign up.
That if you don't have health insurance, you finally are in a position to get some at an affordable price.
Participation is critical when Obamacare launches in October.
The name of the game is making sure that young, healthy people get their health insurance. If they don't, the whole system crumbles. But if these people actually do, the system ends up working.
You've gone through already. In Sacramento, a training session for workers who will enroll Californians. A big state, a big push. Enroll America's hoping to sign up 7 million.
3 out of 4 young people actually think having health insurance is important. So there is a real interest there. The issue is that many folks in the past haven't been able to find quality, affordable health coverage.
But Ohio, run by Republicans, warns consumers there will pay 88% more because they'll have fewer choices. And Republican lawmakers laugh at claims that Obamacare will cut costs nationally.
Well, it's just as absurd as it sounds.
What will 40 million uninsured Americans do? The success or failure of Obamacare could be at stake. The president has an uphill fight. In last month's NBC News Wall Street Journal poll, just 37% of Americans said Obamacare was a good idea. From Washington, I'm Steve Handelsman for 10 on Your Side.
If you are looking for a new job in law enforcement, the Holiday Inn on Greenwich Road was the place to be today. The National Organization of Black Law Enforcement held a job fair. The FBI, police departments from all across Hampton Roads, local sheriff's offices, even Norfolk State University police were on hand looking for new candidates.
We have reached out to all 7 cities and invited their law enforcement agencies and fire departments to come out today to meet with potential applicants. This event will put them face to face with the recruiters who are actually hiring for the departments for open positions.
The motto for today's job fair was nurturing an inclusive public safety environment. Noble's goal is to foster diversity in all levels of law enforcement.
Now, your Super Doppler 10 forecast with meteorologist Don Slater.
I just wish we had some diversity in the temperatures.
Be a little lower. Actually, you know what?
Yeah.
I'm going to get some weird looks, but I didn't think it was
Oh, no.
That hot? I mean, it was hot. It was hot, but
Yeah.
I thought it was going to be a lot hotter than it was.
It's scorching out there.
Yeah, it is, but the thing about it is the cloud cover that we've had, that's what makes it feel a little bit better. And Jeff Edmondson was out there a few minutes ago, and he said it's a couple of sprinkles, just a couple of raindrops, but not all that much. And it's not worth even looking at Super Doppler 10 Live because they appear and disappear. And again, it's over one block and not the next. Here's what's going on right now. In terms of the cloud cover, here's where we work.
Let's talk a little more about this heat wave hitting Hampton Roads and the rest of the country. It can be especially dangerous for people with chronic medical conditions like diabetes. That's because insulin and blood testing meters are sensitive to warm temperatures. Charles Harrison was diagnosed with diabetes 7 years ago. He says when the temperature gets too high, he just has to stay indoors. Doctors say everyone with chronic medical conditions can have problems in the heat.
That inhibit their ability to increase their heart rate when they need to increase blood flow to the periphery for evaporation.
Still, the best advice is to stay indoors, or if you have to be outside, do any type of strenuous activity early in the morning or later in the evening when the temperatures aren't as high.
Absolutely, Anita. It's best not to overdo it if you're exercising, but working up a healthy sweat, well, that could hold some extra health benefits. New research shows men who break a sweat at least 4 times a week cut their chances of having a stroke by about a fifth. But the study also shows there's a gender disparity here with a much weaker link between women working up a sweat and stroke risks.
Well, preparing for the future. Up next, we'll take you to a summer camp that could help students find jobs and employers find workers.
And tonight on Wavy News 10 at 6, a new exhibit at the Virginia Zoo. Why these two zebras had to wait weeks before they could make their debut.